Welcome everyone to another episode of Minecrab. Today we've updated to classic 0.0.198_04, and right now we're at our museum of first blocks in our world. Each of these is the first of their type in the world. Even the first water that flew into our world down there. And I'm extremely excited because we get to add to this collection for the first time in over a year. We now have the sponge and glass. First, let's take a closer look at glass near this greenhouse I just built. Because the block is so transparent, I can showcase a bug from last episode a lot better. If the angle is just right, the block building preview goes into the glass. So we can have all these different blocks shown up on top of the glass. And my favorite is the sapling, and you can have the little sapling inside of the glass block. Also, glass's transparency allows another bug to be shown really well. If we select the glass, we can see straight through this water. That's because the game can't render two semi-transparent layers in old versions. The third bug allows us to unintentionally see a side of a selected block not be flashing. If you get right on the edge and then swivel around so you can see it, you see the face closest to us right now is not flashing. If we do the same thing on glass, then we can see water through one of its faces that's not flashing, but we can't see it through the other two. Now for the sponge. Sponges have the awesome functionality of actually soaking up the water near them and preventing it from flowing back into their area. The dry volume of the sponge is a cube going out 2 blocks in each direction from the sponge, for a total of 125 blocks covered, including that sponge. Now I'm going to showcase probably my favorite bug in this version. In an earlier episode, I showed how gravity blocks, like gravel and sand, won't fall through liquids, so water in our world. Now if we take a sponge and we put it underneath the gravel here, the gravel will stay above the air now. It won't get updated by the sponge and fall. So we can obtain gravity blocks floating on air. If I break this sponge though, it will update it and it will fall.
Now let's have some fun with the sponges. If I break this block right here, I'll unleash the water, and we can see what happens with all the sponges around it. We've made a floating path of water. This is contained by sponges in the ground and wall that are keeping it away. We can also create a cool water elevator using sponges. Even though this water is flush with the wall, if I go right up to it and hold spacebar, I can still swim in it to get up here. This bug only works on the -X and -Z sides of blocks. All the block updates happen instantly, so if I update this huge block of gravel, it will all immediately fall. Ready? Boom! It all fell down there. A very special bug will happen if we chain enough of these updates together. So I've created this huge slice of gravel right here, and it's all floating right now. And if I update it by breaking this block right here, the game has crashed. That's what this black screen is. So I'm going to reload. You can see that the top gravel is still floating. I can break everything under that gravel without updating it, so give me a second to clean up. Ta-da! This is what we're left with. This is a glitch called update suppression, and it actually exists in present versions as well. When enough updates chain together, it causes a stack overflow error, which crashes the game. This crash prevents the blocks at the end of the chain from updating. So in this case, the top gravel never gets updated and remains floating. That floating gravel we just obtained is extra cool because it has 2 properties that we couldn't get using the sponge method. First, there's no sponge underneath it. The sponge method requires that the sponge to stay underneath the gravel, because as I showed earlier, it will update if you try breaking it. And second, this gravel is way higher than the sponge method allows. The sponge method only allows floating gravel up to Y level 33, because water can't rise above level 32 in this version. Final note about sponges is that they actually don't absorb water if it's right on the world border, next to this fake water outside the world border. Right here, it didn't absorb the water because it's right next to the world border. So we can actually get sponges touching water just at this location.
Another addition is that hotbar at the bottom. Before we had the block we selected at the top right. In this update, cobblestone and sand are not in the hotbar. Notch literally just kicked them out since he didn't have space. And so, cobblestone and sand cannot be placed in this version. This means cobblestone and sand have become the first two features in our world to be discontinued. That's why I placed 1,000 of each of them in our world before updating. I don't know, just to have them. Don't worry, these blocks will be recontinued in the next episode. Let's use that same floating gravity block glitch on our discontinued sand. I've flooded underneath it now, so that we can obtain 1,000 floating sand. There we go, a giant cube of floating sand. Probably the wildest bug in this version is the rendering of Steve's. Every one of their body components is inverted, so it's like you can see inside their head, inside their chest, inside their arms, inside their legs. It looks very strange, and sometimes it looks like they're walking backwards. Very weird. Another change is that the FPS has been capped at 100. In the last episode, we regularly got over 200 frames per second when we were on the surface, but there really is no reason for it to be that high. So now that number can never be over 100, like when we got 2,864 in episode 5. Or so I thought, until I noticed it rarely can go over 100. If we move the camera here, there we go, 101. 101 frames per second. So it just goes one above, very briefly, and it can go over the limit, usually when you change where you're looking so that the amount that's being rendered changes, and it allows the FPS to increase. A new bug from this update occurs when rendering water. It creates these lines along the boundaries. Especially if you look straight down, you can see the grid that forms between all these water blocks. The lines can also be seen on a transparent block underwater, near the edges. I can showcase yet another bug now that sponges hold water stationary. If I go right to the edge of the water and swivel the camera into the water, we can see past the face without the blue tint. So it's like we're X-raying into the water. Now if I slightly go over, we will get this blue tint. And now if we swivel out of the water into the air, we do get the blue tint inside the air. That's all for today's video. After 2 versions with only extremely minor font changes, having a sizable changelog was very refreshing. We're actually going to begin in this version next episode too, because of all the new content. We've done 2 versions in 1 episode, and now we'll do 1 version across 2 episodes. We'll still update later in that next episode though. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing. Bye!